What if you only had 8 minutes to save the world from a massive attack on a heavily populated area? This is the basic premise of Source Code. Directed by Duncan Jones as a follow-up movie to his previous critically acclaimed work of Moon. Source Code carries a cast of well-known faces, including Jake Gyllenhaal, Jeffrey Wright, and Michelle Monaghan, all of whom have starred in previous summer blockbusters, like Prince of Persia's Sands of Time, Casino Royale, and Mission Impossible 3. Source Code begins with Captain Carter Stevens, Gyllenhaal, waking up on a morning commute to Chicago-bound train, where he's partway through a conversation with the woman who he sat across from, Christina Warren, as played by Monaghan, who refers to him as Derek. The next few minutes are a frantic realization by Captain Coulter that he is not in his own body and things are not as they seem. But before too long has passed, an explosive device detonates and takes out the entire train. What plays out next is a realization that Captain Coulter is in fact who he says he is, but it is his world which is wrong, as he is a pilot within an experimental process known only as the Source Code. This code is a process developed by Dr. Rutledge, as played by Wright, which exploits the last 8 minutes of a compatible person's mind, combined with a computer to help run the scenarios of how the events of the attack unfolded. As the movie unfolds, we see a number of attempts by Captain Coulter to locate both the explosive device on the train as well as the mastermind behind the attack before a more deadly and dirty bomb can be detonated in downtown Chicago. At its heart, Source Code is a science fiction movie, which takes a well-known concept played out in many comic books and movies and toys with the ideas as proposed by Hugh Everett in his Many Worlds interpretation, MW1. This is where various realities of events are all played out at the same time, but are all based on a different choice somewhere down the line. Think of this as coming to a crossroads and taking all of the directions simultaneously. It is because that this theory is such a commonly used theme in many science fiction areas that people are easily able to understand the concept that is source code. Yet when this movie decides that it wants to take the idea outside the realms of science and to the action thriller side of movies, it begins to hit some bumps along the track. For example, about halfway through the movie, as we begin to run through some of the iterations of the 8 minutes, we see what happens when you try to save people on the train, which is all good and well to see what the alternatives could be. But what is never touched on is how this can happen within the computer model, as this was supposedly based on the last 8 minutes of a single person's life. Moving on from the simple understanding of the theory behind how this may happen, the movie doesn't handle being quiet or on edge very well, as is demonstrated in a set of scenes within and beyond the 8 minutes when we go off-train. The movie becomes clunky in overly complicated scenes where Captain Coulter is investigating people and there is no tension in the scenes. Combine this with a sense of knowing what's coming shortly, the audience begins to feel its interest waning. What Source Code tries to do here is make a science fiction film more mainstream, such as Jones was able to do with great success with Moon back in 2009. Yet, unlike Moon, the ideas here are not fresh and new, and nor is there anything interesting offered to the audience. It struggles to find that balance between action, adventure, thriller, and science fiction movie by explaining too much of the science to an audience that was willing to accept the concept from the beginning of the movie and just have small parts explained to them. Many other movies have suffered from this before now, including The Butterfly Effect, Deja Vu, The Matrix Reloaded, and The Matrix Revolutions, all of which were perfectly good movies until they decided they had to show the audience what was really going on behind the curtain. So, does this really make Source Code a bad movie? Ask the critics, and they'll say no. Ask the audience, and they'll split them in two. Those who thought it was a good movie and enjoyed the not over-the-top cerebral parts, and those who thought it was a passable attempt at mainstream science fiction. And this is where I stand on this. The movie contains enough action to keep you interested for the full 93 minutes, as well as a not overly complicated plot. One of the biggest questions that this movie has to answer is will it stand the test of time? Give this movie a second or third watch, and then tell me, does the plot still make enough sense? Thanks for watching. Please remember to leave a comment, share, and feedback your ideas for future shows to me over Twitter, at DrDogbert, or in the comments section below. Oh, and remember, there's always a chance that this could be the one reality where the next 8 minutes really count.